Well, another Tour de France is in the books. The yellow jersey went to a kid from Denmark who was discovered, of all places, on Strava a few years ago. And up until he rode bikes professionally, Jonas Vingegaard worked in a fish packing plant. Amazing. Now Jonas rides for Team Jumbo-Visma, and that team wears laser helmets.
Yeah, with Jonas in yellow for most of the tour, the laser helmet was front and center for most of July. Listeners to this show are hopefully very familiar with the brand, as Hadi and I, while far from in Tour de France form, have been wearing laser helmets. For those watching the tour, you may have seen some of the Jumbo-Visma helmets with a stenciled green K on the front. That K stands for Kineticor.
Kineticor is Laser's rotational impact system. They developed it in-house. It works like MIPS without that yellow liner, so you get all the safety benefits without the extra material, weight, and it has slightly better venting. Fatty and I love the Kineticor laser helmets. Both of us have found them more comfortable than MIPS-equipped helmets, and they fit better as well. Laser with Kineticor has instantly been recognized for its safety with the Virginia Tech Helmet Testing Center, giving Kineticor its top rating of 5 stars.
Yeah, Kineticor is great, but it's not the only thing that Laser offers. If you like MIPS, fine. Laser still makes a full range of helmets with that system. And one other note, if you have young ones who are learning to or love riding already, Laser has a number of great kids' helmets with Kineticor. To see the entire Laser lineup, it's lasersport.com, and that's Lazer sport.com.
3, 2, 1.
Leadville, the podcast for the 100-mile mountain bike race presented by Shimano. Find them at bike.shimano.com. This is Season 5, Episode 22 of the show that breaks down, builds up, gets you ready, and freaks you out for the highest, hardest one-day mountain bike race in the country. I am Michael Houghton, Hottie to most.
And I'm Fatty, and we are so close to race day. I'm in Leadville, where I just finished day 2 of the Leadville 100 stage race, holding steady at third place of 4 in the single speed category. Hadi and I are excited to see you in just a couple weeks. We've set up a couple of cool events. On Thursday, August 11th, just 2 days before the big day.
Yeah, we mentioned this at the end of episode 21, but it's worth mentioning again. We'll be recording a show live at 5 p.m. at the Race Expo. Come hang around for part or all of it, and let Lifetime know you appreciate them supporting our show by setting us up with a venue for this particular live event. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we will be real close to the packet pickup zone, so allow me to recommend you time your own packet pickup accordingly. But if you can't make it for the live show, don't worry. We will post it as a regular episode later the same day.
And a reminder, we are doing a group ride earlier in the day, starting at 9 a.m. from Ice Palace Park. We'll have giveaways from our sponsors. We'll have several pro athletes sponsored by the feed there. And most importantly, we'll have a great opportunity to meet with the best informed riders on the course, listeners to this show.
Yeah, Hadi, I had to put this in because I loved it so much. As I was marching my bike up the Columbine Goat Trail today, Hadi, one racer said to me, "This seems like a good opportunity for you to eat." And a minute later, another racer came by and said, "Don't forget, walk with purpose." Honestly, I could not have been more proud.
Yeah, our undergrads have become absolute masters of the Leadville course, and we are covering the most varied section of the course, Hagerman, the road around Turquoise Lake, St. Kevens inbound, and the descent back to pavement. All that washboard, tarmac, dirt, and descent rolled up into one. That is a full house from the Leadville deck of cards in our course segment.
Yep, and speaking of full, we are going to fill up on carbohydrates. Denis Faye is back with a step-by-step or meal-by-meal plan on how to carbo load the week of the race. One of the harder things to do during the Leadville Trail 100 or any off-road race is to reach into your jersey pocket and pull out the item you really want. Your brain is going, "Man, I could use a goo gel with caffeine right now." Your hand goes into the pocket, you rummage around, you pull something out, only to find out this is not what you really want. This is not what your brain ordered. And so you go fishing again. All the while, you're bouncing down or up a dirt road.
Which is why I love my DNA cycling bibs. They are called the gravel bib short. I know the name is kind of trendy. Call them what you want. We call them a problem solver. On the sides of each leg are two stretchy mesh pockets. That is perfect for stashing those emergency go-to gels.
Yeah, you don't want to stuff all of your food in those pockets because it would feel awkward, but racers know there's going to be a moment or two during a long event when they're going to want something very specific. That's what you can put in the side pockets of the DNA gravel bib.
A bonus on that gravel bib is that it also has two pockets on the back panel right at the base of the straps where you can stash some emergency items. These pockets are a little harder to reach, but whatever you put in them will free up space for items in your jersey pockets.
Yeah, like your car keys or your phone, things that you need before and after the ride, but not during. If you're looking for a little additional storage out of your kit, check out the DNA gravel bib. Just go to dnacycling.com.
Every part of this course kicks you in the teeth.
This is the course. We are talking you through what you need to do to have the best possible day on the second Saturday in August, from that shotgun blast to the moment you roll up the red carpet, and that trivial 105 miles in between. Feel free to follow along on my Strava of the course from last year. You will find it on leadville.fm/Strava.
Last time on the course, we got you over Powerline and down Sugarloaf. Now we are on Hagerman. It is a slight downhill where the assistance of gravity can be countered by that washboard surface.
Yeah, it is a downhill and it's tempting to coast. Don't. That is number one recommendation from me today. A few minutes of pedaling here at an easy cadence will keep your legs from cooling down and so that it hurts when you start climbing again. And it's going to get you a little bit closer to the finish line a little sooner. This is a section that is just about 2 miles.
Yeah, what you're trying to do is find that clean line, and any folks who have watched Paris-Roubaix kind of get the idea of this. You'll watch the riders when they get on the cobbles, and they'll ride to the sides of the cobbles, like almost in the grass. Why? Because they're going to find less rock, less of those coveted stones there. Same idea here with these washboards. You might be able to find a clean line off to the sides. Either way, just look for one, because really you don't want to be rattling over these washboards.
Yeah. Today, as in yesterday, I will tell you, the right side of the road as you come down is the clean line. It is practically washboard free. So you will be able to stay on the side of the road that you would naturally gravitate to anyway, and you will be able to just fly. That said, there is a sharp left at the end of Hagerman's onto Turquoise Lake Road. Scrub your speed, because I have seen folks slide out there. It gets pretty loose.
Oh, yeah, going left there on the Turquoise Lake Road. I can't believe you set me up now, Fatty, to talk about the Turquoise Lake. Well, first of all, the descent is pretty straightforward, and it's a good place to tuck in and get a little arrow and blast down towards May Queen. That's not the hard part. The next is the hard part, and I've moaned and groaned about this section of the course, I think every 5 seasons, all 5 seasons I have, because this one bites me in the rear every time I've done it. I don't know why. I think it's in my head. So it's about a mile, I guess, to get down to, or is it a mile in Hagerman or a mile down to May Queen? I kind of forget where that is, what our mileage is there.
Right. So you're doing 2 miles on Hagerman, then you make that sharp left turn, and you've got a mile and change more of paved downhill before you make that right bend, and you're right at mile 90, and then you begin the climb to Carter. That is the climb that Hottie hates. That said, if you know the distance and the altitude, you'll find that it is very helpful. So here are the numbers. When you climb, beginning when you go past the May Queen campground and do that right bend and you start to really climb, you are just going to be 2.8. Just round it up in your head to 3, but so you'll be pleasantly surprised when it's 0.2 of a mile less than that. And 700 feet is all net of climbing. Now, there are a little bit of short dips in here, so you're going to maybe do 800 feet of climbing, but it is not that much. So Hottie, if you were to write it again with those numbers in your head, I think that you would find it less of a mind bugaboo than it has been in the past.
Well, what I found here is the reason why it is as hard as it is. It's nearly a 3-mile climb, and that's no joke, right? 5 kilometers is not a joke of a climb, and it's 700 feet of climbing. So there's reason there to like go, oh goodness, this is pretty tough. You've wrote down here for me, Fatty, something I don't do. Rhythm can help you here. I'll make a note of that because I probably have poor rhythm in this section as well. I kind of slog it up there. So settle in. Try to use your rhythm as you climb this paved section towards Carter. Now, Carter will be very obvious. I mean, there were going to be people gathered around there. There might be a few cars parked there. It is a left to get back onto the dirt. And usually we have a tent there. This is what they call an unofficial feeding area. It's staffed by volunteers. There are Cokes and food and things, and it's open and free to anybody. So go ahead and grab what you want right there.
Yeah, no question about it. And even before you get to Carter, on the right side of the road, Garmin sets up a nice little pop-up tent where, and this was last year, and they did this again at Crusher and the Tusher, where they had ice chest after ice chest of ice cold Cokes, the little ones that they were handing out. And I tell you, Hottie, having one of those basically in the middle of that climb is just, I mean, it brings you back from the dead practically. It is so nice. So, kudos to Garmin for doing that in the past, and fingers crossed that they do it again this year. So yeah, look for the Garmin tent, say thank you, and grab a Coke. It is nice. Once you do that, you're going to notice that there are little flat spots, right? And knowing the altitude and the distance that you're going can really help. So just a net of around 800 feet of climbing and less than 3 miles till you get to Carter. However, once you hit Carter, you are not done climbing. I need to underscore that. You will remember when you came in and turned out, at the beginning of this race and turned off of the Carter aid station onto Turquoise Lake Road, you'd been going down for a minute. Now that downhill for a minute is going to turn into a few minutes of climb. One other thing, Hottie, that I noticed while pre-riding this part of the road on the pavement, someone has spray painted some distances on the road saying, 2 miles to go, 0.5 miles to go. Ignore those numbers. I don't know who they're for or what measurements they are doing, but in both cases, they are not for you. You have less than 2 miles of climbing left when you see that thing spray painted on the road. And you have less than 0.5 till you turn at Carter when you see the 0.5 miles to go. So ignore those things. They are messing with your mind. Your distances are different than whoever those were intended for. So the big takeaway here is, don't let this segment psych you out. Pavement on mountain bikes always feels slow. Uphill on pavement always feels super slow. There's a good chance it's going to be warm by the time you do this, and so heat can psych you out as well. But it is just 3 miles or less till you get to Carter, and you are going to do it. And remember, you've got a red carpet waiting for you just 10 miles or so after you get to the top.
So now I know why I hate that climb. It's 3 miles. The sun and heat is beating off the pavement, and it moves just sluggish. Knobbies on tarmac. No fun. There's good reason to hate that section and let it get into your head. So Kevens, thank God for Kevens, right? Because we're back in the trees. But this is a rolling section and actually goes a little more uphill. Once you get out of Carter, there's probably a net climb here before you peak out, right? But for the most part, you've got some fun, fast rolling sections. There's a tricky right turn though that you're going to want to scrub some speed for. That right turn and the flowiest dirt road descent on the course. So want to check yourself in certain sections because there can be some crashes. There was a terrible crash on the Kevens descent last year I should say. So you're going to be a little rummy, a little out of it in this area, and you're probably thinking about the red carpet. You still need to focus here on Kevens.
Yep, I have seen people flat on the Kevens downhill And, obviously people have crashed there before. So keep yourself in check. Obviously, you're excited to get to the finish line, but make sure you get there safe and, avoid the chunky, rocky stuff if you can. So right at 97 miles or so, you are going to take a right turn, and you are going to be on that flat section after the Kevens descent that goes on for basically 3 miles. Now it rolls a little bit and there's some net descending, so you can really move fast, but it is 3 miles. So you're going to be there for a minute. Then you're going to take a left onto pavement and you're going to go over the railroad tracks. And Hottie, if the Leadville 100 were 100 miles, you'd be at the finish line right now. It's when you cross that railroad tracks is 100.0 miles. Unfortunately for you, and trust me, you will think it is unfortunate at the moment this happens, it is not the end. You have about 5 miles left in this race.
Watch that mileage. We know Leadville Trail 100, but one year they're going to start putting 105 on the T-shirts and the sweatshirts and everything else. And one more thing about that Kevens descent, Fatty, and on the dirt portion, is there some water bars when you're carrying a lot of speed? And I just want to remind folks just to watch it in there, be really focused, because you can go through one of those water bars and come flying out of it, and they'll toss you. Like, they can chuck you a little bit. So just be careful in there before you hit the pavement. And then, once you hit the pavement, then you can take a little mental break before you're back on dirt again.
Yep. You've got flat pavement for about a third of a mile after you cross the railroad tracks, and a marshal is going to point you across the road, and you are at the gutter with less now than 5 miles from the finish line. But you've got one real challenge ahead of you, the Boulevard, a.k.a. the Boulevard of Broken Dreams.
We hope you've saved one more match, because from here to the finish line, you're going to want it. You're going to need it. We'll explain why next time on the course. The variety of the terrain we just covered on the course is another reminder of how important it is to dial your tire pressure.
Yeah, and you've still got time to fine-tune that tire pressure. But where do you start? We say go to Envy. I recently spoke to Envy's Neil Shirley about an online tool that they have, and it's a great place to begin your tire pressure journey, and it's totally free. Looking at you, I'm guessing you weigh about 140. Is that about right?
150.
Okay, well, 150 pounds. You're out there mountain biking. What are you inflating your tires to that you're hitting your rims a couple times a ride? I mean, I have to admit, I still get nervous anytime I hit my rims. It sounds like I'm overinflating constantly.
Yeah, I mean, it really varies depending on where I'm riding. I mean, here in Utah, especially northern Utah, I mean, we have such the Wasatch are so rocky and rough. So it changes, but I can be in the upper teens and low 20s. Just I'm always changing it. But I think that really a good guide, a good starting point for people to figure it out based on their rim width and tire volume and rider weight is our tire pressure chart on envy.com. It's a huge, it's a great resource. It's always consistently our most viewed page on our website, because there's just a lot of people, Envy wheel owners and other brands, that they just want that. They want a starting point, and then depending on where you're riding, your style of riding, then you can dial it in from there. But it's a really good place to kind of start at.
To check out Envy's tire pressure calculator and all its class-leading carbon wheels, head to Envy. That's ENVE.com. We're back to the eating portion of this podcast. Like Fatty says, the Leadville Trail 100 is an eating contest disguised as a bike race, and the eating starts well before that shotgun blast.
Yeah, my kitchen here in Leadville is actually stocked with groceries. It looks like we're feeding everyone in the entire race. But that's the thing about Leadville. You got to get a hard start on your calories before the race, or you're going to run a deficit. Your calorie burn is easily going to outdo your intake.
In this episode, we're going to learn how to and what to eat in the days before we race. You're probably familiar with the term carbo loading. It sounds easy enough. Just eat a bunch of bread, pasta, oatmeal, rice before the race. And you're right, those are carbs. But how do we time all that intake? For help, we have back Denis Faye. He is a sports nutritionist and has a master's in holistic nutrition. Denis has written for Men's Health, the New York Times, and Outside Magazine, And of course, he's one of us, a cyclist who loves the long ride and the dirt. He's a 3-time BWR finisher and a captain of his cross team. Denis here to set the table now for our meals leading into race day. All right, Fatty, we have Denis Faye back for more food talk. This is just a great topic. I don't know what's the tougher topic, Fatty. Tires? We did a tire episode, or all this food discussion? I think the food discussion is a little more rewarding, question mark. Like, I think this is a little more interesting, right?
I like everything about food.
Okay. I know you do. We're here to talk about carbo-loading. Carbo-loading. Carbo-loading was a thing, as I remember, back in the day, and then it wasn't. Then they said, no, you don't carbo-load before a big event. Denis, you're here to say, oh, yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yes, and as is our world nowadays, they have the politically correct term is glycogen supercompensation.
Oh, that makes it sound so much nicer.
It does. It makes it sound pro, right?
Than 8 plates of spaghetti.
But that's basically what it is.
So it is a thing. It is something we should be doing.
Yes.
Why?
Because your energy, so you derive energy. It's a big super. The real answer, like the nerds out there are going to be like, oh, he's just making that up, But I'm going to oversimplify it to tell you. Basically, you have your fat store. You have fat, and you have sugar. Those are the two things that fuel you. And the sugar is you eat it. It's stored in you. Obviously, we all know how fat's stored in you, right? And you have a substantially less amount of sugar stored in you, and most of it is in something called glycogen, which you will find in your muscles, your liver, and a little bit in your brain. And this is your stores of like I said, sugar, carbohydrates, and you want to stock those up because you want to use them on race day. You want to make sure you have as much as possible. That's it.
Okay, I'm down for that.
Yeah. And again, as you know, you can burn. You can burn like about 800 to 1,000 calories an hour. That's going full bore. And you can take in. This is talking in terms of carbohydrates. You can take in at most half that. So it's a losing battle. So you want to have as much stored up as possible going into this thing.
So back in the day, long time ago, the Leadville 100, the night before the race, would put on a spaghetti dinner. And they'd load you a big plate of spaghetti, a couple of meatballs on it. Is that what you mean by carbo loading? Is that the kind of meal I should be having the night before the race?
Well, last I checked, there weren't a lot of carbs in meatballs. But, sorry, I just had this a little cheap.
Right.
That's a nutrition guy joke. Sorry. No. Yes and no. That's topping off the tanks, as it were, and that is a good tactic. But when you talk about carb loading, it's more 3 days or more leading up to your event. I have a couple of strategies that I'll go through here. One of them is this is the no-brainer, and that's just 3 days before your event, just eat a crap ton of carbs, like every possible opportunity. That's the kind of pig at the trough method. Now, there's another more scientific method, and this comes from Louise Burke at the Australian Institute of Sport. Louise Burke's pretty cool if you want to check out stuff by her. It just occurred to me, I don't know Louise perfect. Assuming because she has an E, or they have an E at the end of their name, they are a woman, but in this, I might be wrong.
Safe bet.
All right, cool. So to do that, okay, so you're going to taper, right? So you want to kind of pair your carb loading with your taper. So 4 hours, within 4 hours of your last pre-taper effort, like your last hard effort, right? You're going to have a little carb odyssey, and you're going to consume about 1 gram per kilogram of body weight, or about 0.5 grams per pound every hour for 4 hours. So that would mean that translates to like a 160-pound athlete. That'd be about 320 calories an hour, right? Followed by 2 carb-heavy meals. Not like all at once, but have them when you have meals, but just make sure they're happy. And then up to race day, just have a moderate amount of carbs, which is about 5 grams per kilogram of body weight, which is, I don't know the math on that. Someone else can figure that out. So so that's kind of that is the accepted method for glycogen supercompensation. Was that just too much math?
That's a lot of math, yeah. What we'd rather see is, okay, this is what most Leadville racers end up doing, is they arrive in Leadville. I would think the majority of people ended up there the week before the race, the Saturday or Sunday before the race, right? So they have 5-6 days in Leadville to really do nothing but go out and do some recon rides, take it easy, and eat.
All right.
So what's their carb loading strategy look like in Leadville the week of?
Here we go. You do after your last hard effort before you're going to start getting ready, right? You just spend like right after that ride, you just go for it with carbs. All right. If you're having a recovery shake, put some bananas in there and stuff, and just eat donuts. Just live life. Live the carb lifestyle for 4 hours. Then after that, your next subsequently 2 meals in town, going to town and, Italian restaurant, giant amount of pasta, or just epic burrito with lots of beans and rice, right? 2 meals like that. Like, breakfast, if one of those meals is breakfast, you want to have waffles. Very important. Mission critical. And after you do that, up until the race day, in a little bit here, we're going to talk about night before, day of strategy. But up until that, you just eat in a reasonable, normal fashion. You've loaded up, and now you're just kind of keeping the tanks there. That being said, if you feel like having extra carbs along the way, if you feel like having another piece of bread at the restaurant, if you just kind of feel like having, if you're a super healthy person, you feel like having a second banana, during that time, don't be afraid to have carbs at will.
Mm-hmm. So say Sunday's my last day of doing anything effort-wise, right? So I go out, I do some intervals, I do this super compensation drill, right? Where I'm taking in, I think you said 300 grams of carbs per hour for 4 hours, then 2 big carb-heavy meals after that, all on the same day?
Well, no, it was. You know what? Let's just throw the math away.
Okay.
Because I said it because I had to. If you want to go look up Louise Burke from the, I can actually give you a link to the study if you want to put on this. This is just the accepted norm.
Yeah.
They can do that. But let's just say a bunch of carbs.
Okay.
Like 4 hours after your hard effort, bunch of carbs.
So we do the super compensation day.
Yep.
This is Sunday. Then from there forward, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we'll take it to what's normal carb eating? How much would be? Because a lot of our folks, me included, like, I don't know what's normal. I just make a sandwich. What's normal?
Well, the lucky thing is that you're going to be in Leadville, so you're probably going to be eating at restaurants, and the restaurant industry will go ahead and take care of that for you, and make sure you have plenty of carbs. But you know what a carby meal is. I mean, it's a pasta, or it's like beans and rice, or it's bread, or it's well, yeah, like you said, a sandwich, and then you get some chips on the side, and then a piece of fruit, and there you go. And pretty much anything sweet, once you get into the candy territory, is going to be carbs. I don't want to advocate being a junk food junkie or anything, but those are carbs. And I do, word of caution, okay? This is important, especially for fatty, because I know that he is concerned about his svelte figure. When glycogen that's in your muscles, it goes in there with water. So when you load up on glycogen, you gain weight. You're gaining water weight. It's completely normal, and there's nothing wrong with it. But if you, like a few days before your event, and then, like I said, you had a bunch of carbs, and then maybe that night you have spaghetti for dinner, and you get up the next day and there's a few pounds on the scale, you're not getting fat. You're not. It's fine. You're just adding water weight to your muscles, and it's perfectly healthy. And as a matter of fact, it's probably an indication that you weren't eating enough carbs in your life anyway.
So there's something that worries me about what you're describing, and that is it's doing something new right before the race. I know for myself, when I eat differently, that there's generally some kind of reaction. I'm not talking about pounds on the scale. I don't bring a scale with me to Leadville. I'm talking about that I feel ill. That if I start eating a lot more in one way or another, or just eating more, that I do not feel great. And what I don't want is when I roll my bike up to the starting line, to do so feeling bloated or stuffed or just off. I want to feel like, I want to feel strong and fast and good. And I'm worried that eating this much more, right before a race is going to make me feel bad. How do I avoid that?
Well, a couple of things, right? This concept is it's kind of a time-honored tradition, and I know most cyclists I know do this. So you get used to it after a while. So there's that adaptation thing. Two is you never want to eat till you're feeling bad. I mean, you eat what feels good. You eat, you're being indulgent. You're not being gross. I'm not saying turn this into a food eating contest. I'm just saying that you can have the bagel. Like, you're good. You can, I'm not saying eat 5 bagels. I'm saying you get up and you go to breakfast, and whereas normal you might tell yourself, well, no, I should really just have, a spot of yogurt and perhaps, a spot of tea. You can actually have a bagel, and then you put a bunch of stuff on your bagel, and it's delicious. But, and if you're eating your bagel and you get halfway through it and you're like, I'm satisfied, I don't want the second half of that bagel, don't eat it. I'm not saying pork out. I'm just saying don't be afraid.
I think that the only time we've been told here, Fatty, to eat extra is that day of our last effort. That's when you really want to focus, I think, on making sure you absolutely get as much carbohydrates as you can on that day. And then from that day forward, at least say we're working on that, it's Sunday, our last day ever. And then Monday through Thursday, you want to eat regularly. You want to make sure that the majority of that food is coming from carbohydrates. Mm-hmm. And eat till you're full. Like, don't walk around hungry, for sure.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid.
Yeah.
To eat pancakes.
But even during that post, I mean, I gave you those numbers, but I don't have it in me to tell people to eat to sickness. I don't think anyone should ever do that. Just don't be afraid of carbohydrates. This is the moment. These are the days where leaving the top half of the bread on your sandwich. You put the top, make it a closed face sandwich. This is the time for that. So I'm not asking you to eat weird stuff, although you're eating at restaurants and stuff, and that's a thing. But
actually, we all do a pretty good job for those of us who rent places in town. Now, there's some folks that are in hotels but there's enough Airbnb going on and enough people saying that they do have access to kitchens. Many of our racers will have access to kitchens. I know I always made sure that I had a kitchen where I could, no, sorry about that. I have food, I have carbohydrates stuck in my throat. I'll get rid of that carbohydrate right there.
The moment I started this advice, he just ran to the kitchen and grabbed some ice cream.
But typically when I would get into town, I'd go shopping. And although I didn't do that compensation meal that you talked about, that's new on me. The rest of my meals were steel-cut oats in the morning, like every morning, nice bowl of steel-cut oats with fruit on top. For lunch, I would always make usually a Spanish tortilla, which is potatoes, mostly potatoes, some egg, olive oil, onions, the other ingredients. That would be the focus of lunch, right? And then dinner would be focused on usually some type of rice and bean type meal, something like that. And that would continue through the week. I would eat till I was plenty full.
There you go. And if you in between those meals, if you want to have some fruit, if you want to have an apple, if you want to have a banana, you're okay to have that. And, also, I mean, you're a very healthy eater, and that's fantastic. But if there are those little indulgences you want along the way, Fatty, you mentioned your love of tortilla chips to me last time I was here, or 2 times ago I was here. I don't know how that works in radio land, or podcast land. But you eat your corn chips. I mean, don't eat all the corn chips. Never do that. But it's okay. There's no harm in those corn chips at this point.
All right. Nachos it is.
Yeah, but I really like Hottie's plan that he just laid out there. That sounds like a really smart way to go. I had forgotten about potatoes.
So we talked about some good stuff. What should we avoid in this week of carb-focused eating? Fibrous foods?
No. You don't. No. I mean, you don't. You're not throwing health out the window. I mean, fiber fills you up and stuff, so you don't really. Probably soups and salads. You still want to eat those. I'd never tell someone not to eat their greens and stuff, but you don't go have a giant salad, because that's like a volumetric thing. That's a lot of volume without being a lot of calories.
Empty calories, in other words.
No. Empty calories means like sugar. Empty calories means you're getting calories with no other nutrients in it. So, in fact, they're very leafy greens are absurdly nutritious, but they fill you up and they give you a lot of vitamins and minerals and fiber and stuff without a lot of calories.
Right. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
How about proteins then? Where does this fit into this week of carb loading?
They're always important. Except for when you're actually racing. There's this little window there where they become unimportant. But I would just, to maintain maximum recovery, I personally would recommend, I like to say, anywhere from 3 to 5 20-gram protein occasions. I think for most people that will give you all, and space it out, so that you always have those amino acids going to your muscles and promoting recovery. So yeah, don't completely abandon it, but it doesn't. You don't need the protein load, as it were.
You want to go to the night before the race? Should we tackle that giant? I mean, this becomes, obviously, as Fatty said, they used to do a big spaghetti dinner. I think some people mistakenly see that as carbo loading. Obviously, as you just told us, real carbo loading is spaced out over a number of days. But when it comes to that last big meal, the night before, and you can do the morning of. So let's first, the night before. What does a night before meal look like when we're about to do 105 miles across the Colorado Rockies? Well,
there's a bunch of points you guys have brought up I think are important. To Fatty's point, you don't want to have anything weird, because that could affect you the next day, and you don't want to pork out, which is to say you don't want to eat so much that you're sick and all that kind of stuff. So I would stick to something, and I think a lot of athletes, and especially cyclists, are very ritualistic. And for me, it's a burrito. I can. It's the damnedest thing. Like I have so many races and rides and everything. I've done so well having a big old burrito the night before. Whereas if we had pizza or pasta or something, I just kind of did just okay. So honor your rituals. Keep those carbs in mind. Now, whether you need to be super focused on carbs depends. No, I'm not going to say that. I just think a nice, good, solid, balanced meal is all you need. At that point, the hay's in the barn. You should have been pretty loaded up. And as long as you have you said you like to have your steak.
Yeah.
But have your baked potato with your steak.
Oh, I do. It's usually rice and a steak. See, I've said something on the show a number of times. I've said it to Fatty, that food is mood, right? Yep. So there's the carbo loading and make sure the gas is in the tank. But food, at least for me, also helps me with state of mind, like your burrito does, right? The burrito may not be the ideal thing the night before if you're trying to make sure there's gas in the tank, but up here in your head it is.
Yes.
And to me, the steak just makes me feel good. I don't know what it is, if it's the redness of the world and it's making me feel like I'm going to attack tomorrow, or I just like the way it is, right?
Yeah.
The food is mood thing goes away. So let's talk about the next morning now. So morning of the race, we're supposed to get up, and we're not going to do what we talked about when we're trying to train our guts, which is go out with a full stomach. But we should eat something, even if we're not great eaters. Like, here's the deal. I remember Rebecca Rush, she came on the show a long time ago in our first season and said, I have a hard time eating breakfast. It's really hard for me, but I know how important it is before the Leadville Trail 100. It's just really important. She says, I just at least try to power down a smoothie. So what should we be aiming for breakfast the morning of? Keep in mind, this is a 6:30 a.m. start too. So breakfast has to happen early, but what are we aiming for here?
So before I address that, I want to talk about your food is mood thing, because I feel that's very important, especially for these people. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So we can sit here and we can say, here's what you should eat and here's what you should drink and here's what the pros do, right? But there's that other side of it, is who you are as a person and what you eat and what your culture is and what your personal identity is and just what you like are. And I think the goal of proper nutrition, sports in life, but sports nutrition as well, is to find the little Venn diagram where the advice you're supposed to give and who you actually are and what you eat interlap. And that's good. So I think that's so important what you just said. And I really want to, some people are kind of robots and they can just do what the number thing says and they're super happy. Most of us aren't. So don't sacrifice you and what you are just for the sake of these foods that are just going to discourage you in a weird sort of way. Now, breakfast.
Breakfast.
There you go. Okay. So up until very recently, I would the standard way of eating. You say you have a big like a balanced but with carbs meal 3 to 4 hours before the event. If you can't have that, which sounds like a Leadville thing, you would have a 100 to 200 calorie carby snack 1 hour before, right? If you can't have that, right before, 10 to 20 minutes before, you have 50 to 100 calories that are basically just sugar. And so if you, I would add that if you're in the situation where you're just having the little thing before, then you probably want that big substantial dinner is super important because that's what's going to kind of get you through. Now, what's interesting to me, again, last time I was here, I talked about Super Sapiens and the continuous glucose monitor. I find it fascinating because what you can do, and this is an emerging technology, but they're learning because they're looking at different athletes and stuff. So it's worth checking out their website. What you can do is look at your blood glucose and determine when's a good time to eat for you. And for most people, I had mentioned there's that conventional wisdom of the 100 to 200 calorie carby snack 1 hour before. Probably not a good idea for most people, as it turns out, because what happens is that you eat, right? And you eat carbs, and your body releases insulin. And then insulin grabs all the, and you have a spike of the sugar that goes into your blood, and then a whole bunch of insulin comes out, and it takes that sugar away, and it does things with it, and then you have a drop. So you see like an up and then a way down. And you don't want to start your event with a way down, right?
Yeah.
So according to these guys, based on what they're seeing, if you eat 4 hours before you eat, insulin does its thing, it drops, and then it normalizes. So you can go into your event with normalized blood sugar, right? And I'm hooked to one of the devices, and I'm seeing it, and it makes complete sense. And I think that's solid advice. 20 minutes before, what happens is you eat, and then when you're exercising, the way you absorb the way you process blood sugar is a completely different set of rules, and you don't even use insulin. You don't need it. So basically what you're doing there is you're putting the sugar in, the sugar goes in your blood, and then you start exercising, and then the insulin spike and dip doesn't happen. So you're good. So they're basically giving the same advice I give, leaving out the hour before one. They're saying that one's bad because you'll be tanked.
So either eat early, like well before the event, or wait till like you're at the start line and try to eat something right there before the gun goes off.
Yes, that is their advice.
Yeah. And
I dig it.
Okay. So actually, Rebecca Rush's smoothie, well, depending on when she drank it, may not have been her best. She won the event, so who are we to say?
Yeah, exactly.
Her smoothie got her to victory lane. But
there's it's individual too, right? This is an average, and this is why it's important again to experiment. To last time I was here, we talked about experimenting and training, and train this. Like try these things. Try the, obviously you don't have to try carbo loading or glycogen supercompensation over and over and over again. That'd get a bit tiring. But if you're going to have a big day training, eat like you're going to do the race and see what happens and see what works for you and pay attention to that. Because that's getting back to what Fatty said about 10 or 15 minutes ago. You're eliminating variables by doing that. So don't just. I hope that your listeners like my advice, and I hope that they use it. But I wouldn't just enact it on race day. I would try it 3 or 4 times first and figure it out.
Yeah, that was really one thing that I was wondering about, is which parts of this do I need to experiment with before I get to Leadville, and which parts of it do I need to experiment with multiple times before I get to Leadville? Like when you're talking about the 3 to 5 days before the race, I was thinking, okay, this sounds like solid advice, but there is no way I am going to do that for the first time when I get, 5 days before Leadville. I am going to need to try that sometime. I was thinking, maybe I will try that 5 days before the Crusher and the Tusher, a race that is important to me, is a lot like Leadville in terms of exertion, but, I don't have quite as much mental skin in that game. Is that about right? Try everything at least once before you take it to your A race.
Any race I do a glycogen super compensation protocol. Any race I do. Like, yes, you just, even if it's a training race where it doesn't matter if you pin it, you still want to come in and give it your best. I had mentioned trying different weird things at training. That's one thing, but to me, a race is a race. Like even if it's a training race leading up to a bigger race, I'm still going to take it very seriously. And so, yes, I think that's great. And if it's a race that's not as meaningful to you, and then I've never known anyone who has had a bad experience with this protocol, but you might be the exception, and better to learn it at a race that's not as, you don't want to be, you don't want to spend Leadville, everyone else is sitting in their saddles and you're sitting on the can because you screwed up.
Denis, thanks so much. This is, there's new stuff I'm going to try. I've done this race. I'm closing in on my 25th try. I'm going to try some new stuff this year. Thanks to you.
Awesome. I love what you guys do, and I love coming on here, so thank you very much.
What I got from this hottie is carbo loading may not be the best term for what we're trying to do, because it makes it sound like you're just stuffing your face constantly. Yes, you are eating more than normal, and yes, those meals are carb focused, but your eating should not make you pass out or make your gut uncomfortable. This is less of a stuffing and more of a shift in what and how much we are eating.
Thanks again to Denis, and bon appetit, everyone. If you want more info from Denis, check out his new personal best website at denisfaye.substack.com.
So all this talk about eating seems like a good time to talk about the feed. And in fact, the feed has more than on the bike race nutrition on its site. You can get real pre-race food from the feed that is easy to make, and it will help step up the carbs in the week before a race, or any time for that matter.
Yeah, the feed has an entire breakfast section that meets the needs of hungry endurance athletes. They have these super convenient oatmeal cups where everything is in the cup. The oats, the dried fruit, the flavor. All you need to do is add hot water. There are also bags of granola for those who like a cold cereal to start the day. And my favorite, and something I love to eat before any important race, is pancakes. Yes, pancakes. Of course, the problem with pancakes is all the ingredients, but the feed solves that by keeping in stock the Birch Blenders Pancake Mix. All you have to do is add water to the mix and cook them up. Food is mood, Fatty, and pancakes puts me in a positive frame of mind.
Which is good if you are climbing St. Kevens, right? So the feed also has a smoothie mix that is based on sweet potatoes, so plenty of good carbs. The brand is Kyoku, and it is great for the racer who has a hard time stomaching pancakes or oats on a stomach full of pre-race nerves.
Breakfast is really important on all days, but especially race day. So make sure you are getting that last meal in before you take off at 6th and Harrison. And remember, the feed can help you with breakfast too. Claim your $80 in annual credit at thefeed.com/Leadville. Register your email and verify your phone number. Then spend your first feed credit of $20 right away.
Let's go ahead and wrap this episode. Hottie and I are on social media. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Fat Cyclist. Hottie's into Instagram, so you can follow him at Michael Houghton. Of course, we're both on the Facebook Leadville 100 Mountain Bike Participants page. And if you've got a conversation you want to start, got a question you want to ask, join our Slack channel. You'll find a lead to it over at leadville.fm/Slack.
If you like the show, go to wherever you listen, give us a 5-star rating, write a review. To see all the ways you can find the show, it's leadville.fm. Finally, telling your friends about our show is the ultimate compliment. And hey, go ahead and tell them about our live show at the Expo Thursday evening before the race at 5 p.m. We would love to see you there.
We sure would. Good luck in your riding, your recovery, especially your recovery right now, and your eating. Thanks for listening, and we're going to see you real soon at the starting line.